Annyeonghaseyo, Chingus. Welcome to this political, historical, and sociological channel. Today we're going to talk about the Marcelo Ebrard, a candidate of the presidents of Mexico in 2024, entails plan. This may violate human rights. The aspiring presidential candidate Marcelo Ebrard proposed a plan to pacify Mexico. However, civil organizations are already warning about this risk due to the misuse of technology. What does the Angel plan say? According to Ebrard, this is his proposal to pacify Mexico through the use of facial recognition, morphological recognition of criminals, vehicle tracking, drones, and bases connected to the artificial intelligence or AI systems. Vehicle tracking, drones, and bases connected to the artificial intelligence or AI systems. He said, "We are going to enjoy the safest Mexico in history." However, the measure has been criticized by activists and civil organizations. According to the network in digital rights known as 3D, although these surveillance tools have been promoted as magical solutions to insecurity and crime, they are part of a narrative that hides the documented evidence of their multiple failures and authoritarian purposes with which they have been implemented. Fernando Garcia, president of R3D, told Expansion that a mass surveillance system implies a permanent monitoring of the entire population, with the disadvantage that these technologies make mistakes for which innocent people are arrested. Also pointed out that the claim of detecting potential criminals based on their movements or the way they walk is based on pseudo-scientific grounds, which have already been refuted. Amnesty International has also warned about the use of this type of system in the context of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. The organization called on the French legislature to reject any plans to the use of AI-powered video surveillance on the grounds because it violates the right to privacy and may violate their rights to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly. Citing the security apparatus with AI-powered mass surveillance is a dangerous political project that could lead to widespread human rights violations. Each and every action in a public space will be absorbed into a dragnet of surveillance infrastructure, undermining fundamental civil liberties. This was said by Agnes Callamard, Secretary General of Amnesty International. Garcia noted that this initiative is part of the trend to digitalize militarization, as there is a real desire on the part of the authorities to generate military control of activities in physical and digital public space. Eric Huesca, a physicist at the UNAM and philosophical doctor in A from the University of California, Berkeley, commented that currently virtually everyone connected to the internet is constantly monitored by the private companies, but stressed that such a system can be problematic due to the ethical biases which this technology was programmed. There is a risk that an artificial brute system, as he sarcastically calls them, programmed with the information that tattooed people were in jail, would be a signal any individual with tattoos could be a potential criminal. The specialists say that users are not obligated to use technology services if they do not wish to hand over any data. However, with a proposal such as the Angel Plan, the measure is inescapable for anyone. Both corporate and government use the data are quite problematic, and neither side justifies a deployment of mass surveillance systems, he commented. The experts also agreed that there are no regulatory frameworks in Mexico to prevent this type of technology from being used abusively against citizens. In this sense, Garcia cited the Pegasus case, through which the government spied on activists and journalists with impunity. If we are not able to prevent, protect, and sanction, when there were cases of surveillance focused on a small number of people, they will be able to do when surveillance is generalized. To make this type of technology work, it is necessary to have a large database. In Mexico, the attempt to create a large repository of information was called Padrón Nacional de Usuarios de Telefonía, known as PANADROT, which was declared unconstitutional by the Court of Justice. Huesca said that in such a system could be subjected to cyber attacks or leaks to obtain all available information, which will be quite harmful to citizens as malicious agents will not only obtain their personal information, but also biometric data that represent a much higher level of vulnerability. On the other hand, Garcia highlighted that the context of collusion and corruption that usually exists in public security corporations is also an argument for not trusting in Marcelo Ebrard's plan. Dr. Huesca, who was president of the Mexican Academy of Informatics, concluded that any system that is massively applied must make transparent the ethics with which it was made. That is, what were the values with which it was programmed to analyze data, as well as who was responsible for the creation of the technology and what logic is behind. The episode of Nosedive of the series of Black Mirror of Netflix since May 2088, China began using a social credit system to her score according to their behavior. The test of this system began in the city of Rangcheng, where individuals and companies start with 1,000 points and 80 units their score, providing services to the community or for exceptional behavior. Likewise, they were penalized for not paying bills with a corresponding loss of points. In other words, depending on their behavior, citizens gained or lost points, which translate into benefits or penalties. A person with low social credit is provided from purchasing plane and train tickets or can be punished with slower internet speeds. May even be restricted to education if they refuse to perform military service or access to a better job offers. This was the case of 169 people who during the month of the system's implementation were penalized. On the other hand, those who adhere better to the rules and the norm of the good citizens are the ones who will end up in a privileged group with access to better education, better services, or better employment. In Surveillance and Punishment, A Bird of the Prison, the philosopher Michel Foucault refers to the prison as the external form of the judicial apparatus. In it, behavior is codified. An apparatus of observation and registration is formed, and an accumulable and centralized knowledge is built into those bodies. It's the system of social control. Then a new form of prison? This is a disciplinary mechanism whose non-compliance can be affected, not only my body, but also that of other individuals in my family. Well, it is like in North Korea. Same way, freedom belongs to all of us, and punishment should be equal. Then punishing a child in his future studies because of an infraction committed by his parents does not seem to be equal, and much less fair, and even punishes in some cases of mobility, depriving the offender of this freedom this time by means of virtual prison. The criminal act itself is no longer being judged, but the passions and maladjustments are now beginning to be judged. This Chinese rating system goes on a step further, because a bad rating for my friends and my family will affect me, my points. Well, here the point system then ends up replacing the word that prison attributes to the prison, about transforming the penitent into a piece that performs its role in a perfect way, producing individuals mechanized according to the general norm of society. Civilization has absolutely no need of nobility or heroism, but are symptoms of a political inefficiency. This sentenced a character in A Brave New World in 1932 by Aldous Huxley. In this literary dystopia, an end had been achieved to international anarchy by creating a totalitarian world state. International anarchy by creating an omnipotent world state, which through a perfect class division, the result of genetic engineering and conditioning and the control and social control to the entertainment, had achieved perpetual peace. The character equates civilization with stability and social peace in such a pragmatic way that everything that attempts against it is undoubtedly. It's a political fallacy, an unnecessary obstacle. Nobility and heroism, those romantic qualities that in Chislic fiction disappear, although have no place in the contemporary state. The old ideas like liberalism, human rights, the right of privacy and intimacy only hinder the protection of the common good. In exchange, breed and circuses adopted the needs of each lawyer to avoid political questioning. And this is what Marcelo Ebrard is proclaiming now with this kind of program. They want to apply it in Mexico and then go to other Latin American countries. I would like to know in the comments what do you think about this, if you think this kind of program is right or is wrong, and if you think that this will be a new system control for all of us or is for our good. Thank you very much. If you like, I would love if you give me thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and share to get more people. See you next time. Bye.